Hi, my name is Wendy Cowan, and I'm going to talk to you about teaching strategies for the digital age. This is just going to be a brief overview of what this semester holds in store for you. So let's get started. As many of you are aware, we are in changing times, and we haven't arrived and we never will because the times will continue to change. During the 21st century, so many of our old assumptions and strongly held beliefs have been turned around, and believe it or not, many more upheavals are on the way. It's clearly a different place in which today's kids are growing up. what does it all mean? That's a great question to ask. What it means is that today's students are no longer the people our educational system was designed to teach. The days of standing in front of your students and putting a PowerPoint up for them to watch and them being really excited about it, that's over with. The days where you could stand up there and lecture for hours and they would just be enthralled by this wealth of information that you have. You got to be kidding. That's over with. You can deliver information all day to your students, but if the students aren't absorbing it, you simply are not being very effective. What happened? There was a technological singularity, and due to this revolution experienced in our culture, multiple core characteristics of today's and tomorrow's students have changed. Today's students have not just changed incrementally from those of the past. A really big discontinuity has taken place. A singularity is something, a happening that is so huge that things will never be the same again. And that's what's happened with the emergence of technology. The result, different kinds of experiences lead to different kinds of brain structures. It is very likely that our students' brains have physically changed and are very different than yours and mine as a result of the way they grew up. There are doctors who believe in this physical change in the brain. That's not been completely proven. However, without a doubt, we do know that the thinking patterns of today's students are different. They are changed. So, where does that bring us? There's a huge paradox for educators. The place where the biggest educational changes have come is not in our schools. Actually, it's everywhere else but our schools. This technological singularity created a digital divide. And as a result of that, we have two classes of people. We have the digital immigrant. These are the people who are not brought in or born into the digital world, but they are trying to adapt to the change that has come with it. That's me. I'm a digital immigrant. And then we have the digital natives. These are the native speakers of the digital language of computers, video games, the internet. They were born into this world. They don't remember a time when it didn't exist. The problem: digital immigrant instructors who speak an outdated language are struggling to teach a population that speaks an entirely new language. What does this mean? Okay, let's pretend that you have come to my calculus class today because you want to know calculus. You want to, whatever it is that you're wanting to do for the rest of your life, you've got to have a really good calculus background. And so you've come to my class today. I've got this really, really wonderful lesson planned. And I begin to speak, and you're there waiting to listen, but lo and behold, what comes out of my mouth is a language you don't understand because I'm speaking French, and you only understand English. So I can stand in front of that class and give the most glorious, wonderful presentation about calculus in my beautiful French language. And even though you really, really want to understand, you simply can't because we speak two different languages. That's what's happening today in education. We have digital immigrants who are speaking a language of before the digital age, and we have digital natives who can't understand them. Ever seen this picture? It's happening in classrooms every day. We are up there teaching and teaching and teaching away, but they're not listening. So, let's talk about who the digital natives are. There's some characteristics of the digital natives that we know. And if you will understand try. It's kind of hard sometimes for us immigrants to understand these characteristics because they're very different than ours, and we expect everybody to be just like us, think like us, study like us, learn like us. But believe it or not, they are different. If you will learn the characteristics and embrace them in your teaching, you will be everybody's favorite teacher. Digital natives want it now. They are used to instant gratification. An immigrant, let's see, a digital immigrant is used to waiting on information, because sometimes when you needed to know about something, you had to wait until the very next day when you could go to school and go to the library to look it up and learn about it. Well, the digital native, they are used, if you want to know about something, you just get on your phone and you Google it. Here's an example of the difference between the wanting it now. There was a snake in my backyard a few weeks ago, and a digital immigrant would look at the snake and then go inside, find an encyclopedia, look up snakes, and try and figure it out. The digital native would take a picture of it, throw it on Facebook or Twitter, and say, hey, what kind of snake is this? They want to know now. Digital natives are parallel processors and multitaskers. What does this mean? This means that they can do multiple things at one time, and they can actually be successful at it. I know when you're up there in front of class and you've prepared all this wonderful information, you want everybody's undivided attention. And it just gripes you to death to think that there's a kid there that might be looking on their Facebook page, or, looking at a YouTube video, or doing something while you're talking. Well, guess what? That's how the digital natives work. That's how they learn. My kids, I have a 18-year-old and a 16-year-old. When they are at home, quote, studying, I'll be like, oh, turn that TV off, turn the radio off, unplug your iPod so that you can study. And they're like, I can't. I have to have this going. And so while they're doing their work, they've probably got 5 or 6 screens pulled up on the computer. They're working from one, they're chatting in another, they're looking at videos in another, they're playing a game in another, and this works for them because that is how they've grown up. Graphics first. If you want to get them immersed in the content, you've got to show them a pretty picture. Our kids today are used to graphics. Think about the very well-developed video games these kids play. I mean, I walked into my son's room the other day, and okay, all I look at was the TV. Obviously, I wasn't paying a lot of attention, and I'm like, who's playing? And he's like, Mom, it's a video game. But that's how real it looked. It looked to me like it was a football game, and I was like, well, who's playing? Because I didn't realize that a football game would be on. And it looked so real. It looked almost as good as my HD TV. And that's what they're used to. Graphics. Use graphics, really good graphics on your website, on your, if you do, handouts, whatever. Use really good graphics. They prefer random access. I know this totally blows some of your minds that people do not like sequential, because I'm one of those people. Again, I'm an immigrant. I grew up. How do you do something? Here's step 1. Here's step 2. Here's step 3. Here's step 4. Here's step 5. And I'll actually look at the steps and go through, and yeah, not the digital natives. They prefer random access. They want to view information and learn about it in their order of interest. For example, if they're reading about something and there's a hyperlink in there, they want to click on that hyperlink and learn more about it. They want that option anyway. They want to be able to go and explore and learn more. Have you ever been in class and the teacher's talking about something that's, she's talking about Knights of the Round Table and King Arthur's court and all this kind of stuff, and she mentions the word castles, and you want to know about castles. Well, that's not what the lesson's about, so she says, well, we'll talk about that later. Oh no, we don't do that with our digital natives. If they want to learn about castles, it's a teaching moment, and so we immediately learn something about castles. We can always come back to our lesson on the Knights of the Round Table. They want that random access. Prefer serious games to work. Well, who doesn't? The thing is, though, digital immigrants do not have a lot of value in the ability to learn from a game. However, there are lots of really good educational games that do teach. And if we can make teaching and learning fun, game-like, oh my goodness, how wonderful is that? Thrive on instant gratification. Maybe you think you've got this, we should wait. You can't be immediately, gratified all the times. It's an unrealistic expectation. And maybe there are times when it is, but you have to think about these students and the world they grew up in. They grew up playing video games. And if you've ever played one of those video games, you know that there's statistics the entire time they're playing about their health, their power, their vitality, whatever it is. There's all this instant feedback that lets them know, hey, you're doing a good job. You're not doing well. You need to do better. Here's what you need to do to improve. They're getting that instant feedback from the things they experience growing up. And so when they turn working for us and we say, hey, it'll be 3 weeks before I can get that back to you, they don't understand that. They have no appreciation for it. They need to know, hey, am I doing this right? Am I on the right trail? They expect that, and they need that to feel successful and to continue on pursuing whatever it is you want them to pursue. They enjoy being networked. They grew up in a networked world. Again, I gave the example a minute ago about my kids being on the computer doing work. While they're on the computer doing their work, they're often on Twitter or on Facebook, and they often are doing some chat back and forth. That's the world they know. They don't know any different. And so when we bring them into our classrooms and say, you may not work together, you may not talk, you may not sit, it completely disrupts the world that they are used to, the world that they have experienced and thrived in. And when you take somebody out of their element, you can't expect them to do as well as they would when they are in their element. A fish out of water has a hard time surviving. So I'm not saying that always work in groups. There are some things that need individual attention. But in most things in real life, when you get big, when you grow up, there's not a lot of work products that come individually. There's a lot of teamwork, a lot of collaboration, a lot of working together to solve the problem. So, keeping them networked, working together, it's a great lifelong skill. What do these students want? What do they want from me? What do they want from you in their classes to make them thrive? No lectures. They do not want to be told. They want to be asked. Ask the questions. Allow them to find the answers. Now, that doesn't have to be this random thing. It can be very structured. But allow them to look for the answers. Respect and trust. They believe their opinions matter, and they want you to act like their opinions matter. They don't want to be ruled over. They want to feel like they're part of the team. I personally think the best teachers I've ever had are ones that are facilitators. They help the learning to continue and to progress, but they don't demand how it takes place. They want to be able to follow their own interests and passions. There's not many subjects, much content that you cannot teach and apply it to a student's interest or their passions. If we're talking about physics and you've got kids that are involved in sports or cheerleading or marching band or whatever, you can apply most physics concepts to something along their area of interest. Yes, it might be a little bit harder for you to conceptualize that and make the connection. But a good teacher does that because we know that if we get the students engaged, they will learn. They want to be able to create using the tools of their time. Guess what? It's okay if you don't know how to use the technology. I wouldn't expect you to be able to use every piece of technology out there. I can't use every piece of technology out there. And goodness knows that when a new one comes across my desk, I certainly try to figure it out. You don't have to know how to use it. You have to give your students the freedom for them to be able to use it. And then if you want to learn, they can teach you. They want to work with their peers. We just talked about this earlier. It's a great lifetime skill. It will serve them well to learn how to be a leader, how to be a follower, how to negotiate, how to compromise. Truly, there are so many great characteristics you gain from working with others. They want to be able to make decisions and share control. And we know in the workforce that the more buy-in you get from the people you work around you, the more pleasant the working environment will be. Anytime that you want to make a policy change or just any kind of change, if you can convince the people that are going to be involved in it that it's a good idea and get them to support it, it's so much less painful to make the change. Same thing with your students in class. Who says the first day we walk in, we have to have the rules posted? Why not have a discussion and let them help you arrive at the rules? Kids can be guided. You can get them to exactly where you need them to get to. You just have to guide them. Let them be part of the decision making. If they help make those rules, I can guarantee you they will be more likely to follow them because after all, they're their rules now. They want to connect with peers to express and share opinions in class and around the world. Do not limit your students to those four walls of your classroom because for the rest of their life, they're going to be working with people from all over the world. I think it's the neatest thing. Like I said earlier, my kids, they play video games every now and then. And I will walk in and they'll be chatting away with, these people I don't know. And they'll be like, yeah, he was from Russia. Yeah, he was from here, And my kids have friends in lots of different countries. I don't. How awesome is that to be able to say, hey, yeah, I've got a friend who lives in Switzerland. We, talk on the Xbox every night, whatever. Really neat. Really neat. Cooperate and compete with each other. Education goes in spurts about things that we're really big about. And there for a while, there was just no competition. We couldn't let anybody be a loser. You know what? There's a lot to be said for learning how to lose and learning how to win with grace. Good sportsmanship. This can be taught in your classroom in an atmosphere where you help control and make sure that the kids are being gracious winners and that the kids are being, humble in their winnings and encouraging to the people who didn't succeed. And if you arrange things so that, if you're a good manager, then you can make sure that there's not certain kids that always lose in the competitions. That's up to you. A lazy teacher allows the same kid to lose and lose and lose again. Everybody in your class needs to lose at some point, and everybody in your class needs to win. And the cooperation side. Everybody needs to learn how to work with others. We've talked about that already. They want an education that is not just relevant, but is real. Real world education. Again, back to the physics and connecting it to their passions. When I leave your class, I need to know how this content is real in my life. Not saying, well, one day you're going to use this. Well, one day you'll be glad you learned this. No, that's not good enough anymore. Tell me why I need to be engaged. Tell me why. Show me. Make this real for me. Yes, extra work on the teacher to be able to make those higher order connections. But that's what you're there for. You are there to help them see the importance of what they're doing. You remember being in the class and asking the same question, but why do I need to know this? You wanted to know the answer as well. Don't be the teacher who doesn't make it real. And now the big question. How do we do it? In this class, that's what we're going to talk about. How do we do it? We're going to talk about designing a 21st century curriculum, what that means, what should guide you in doing that. We're also going to talk about a flipped classroom design. The flipped classroom is a huge buzzword. I don't care if you call it a flipped classroom or not, but the techniques used in a flipped classroom are wonderful for getting the most advantage out of that class time that you have with your students. We're going to be discussing partnering pedagogy, and the specific types are going to be inquiry-based learning, problem-based learning, and project-based learning. I know you've heard about these before in your classes when you go through your methods classes and you talk about the different types of teaching methodologies and you briefly discuss them. Well, it's well and good to talk about them. The truth of the matter is you probably were not taught using these methods. Therefore, you may not use them when you go out there and teach. And we know that these are the teaching methods that students today need. So in this class, we're not just going to talk about them. You're actually going to experience them through the lesson design, and you're going to use them as you teach your lessons. Okay, so let me just go ahead and prepare you for lesson designs. In this class, there will be no content. There will be questions, and there will be structured responses that you'll have to give. But the actual answers are going to be up to you. You are going to have to find the answers. Don't freak out. Don't panic. It's a new way of teaching and learning that maybe you have never experienced. But it gives you so much freedom in what you learn. And what's even more is it's not going to confine you to the little bit of content I can give you. It's going to expand your world so that you can learn as much as you possibly want to learn. It's a great methodology. While it may be very different and scary for you because you think you might get the wrong answer, it's okay. It's an experience that we have to have so that you will learn how to use these teaching methodologies. Just briefly, the course description for this class, I want to read it to you because I want you to understand where we're going. This course encourages questioning of previously conceived notions about the qualities and characteristics that make a good teacher and how to use those qualities to better increase learner awareness regarding ever-changing student needs. We are going to challenge teaching methodologies that some of your teachers are currently using, that teachers in your past have used. We're going to challenge those teaching methodologies, and I'm going to expose you to new ones, and we're going to see where we can go with this. Students will learn the unique characteristics of today's digital age students and 21st century pedagogy strategies used for instructing this population. Remember, that's what you always need to remember. You are not teaching yourself, you're teaching digital natives. Upon completion of the course, students will have the ability to locate, use, and assess a variety of tech tools that are used for student inquiry and presentation of work, and create and present content-based lessons that model explored teaching strategies. It's going to be a great semester. You're going to be exposed to a lot. You're going to learn a lot. And what you learn will be in your hands. A 21st century teaching goal is learner responsibility. You are going to be responsible for your own learning. I'm going to give you guidance. I'm going to ask the questions that need answered, but in the end, you will determine how much you learn. Should be an interesting semester. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, that wraps up the overview on teaching strategies for the digital age.